What's up? Jimmy, aka Bloody Vengeance, back with another toy video. That's what I've been doing here lately during this quarantine. You can tell I got the quarantine muff going. So I don't know what's going to happen. Might as well just let that shit grow out. Today I'm going to cover what I do to fix this common problem with the vintage 80s Real American Hero G.I. Joes. This guy, Viper, his knees are really loose, and I've tried several things this week on several figures, and I found that the best solution for this it's just very simple. You can grab it anywhere. You can go to Ace Hardware or Walmart, even wherever. But it's this stuff, varnish, just regular varnish, glossy. It tends to be thicker, so basically the idea is, since the joints are loose, the varnish just kind of adds a little bit of thickness to the gap, and then it really tightens up the joints. Like this cross-country figure I had here was really bad. There's no wiggle on him at all, as you could see, but not only is there no wiggle, like his joints are really tight. It's just like if I took him out of the package. I've done this on several figures already using different things. I use crazy glue on one, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. It works, but it stiffens the joints too much when it dries. So I think varnish is pretty much the best thing I've had results with, so I decided to share how I do this. So I will go ahead and document this and show you guys what I do to fix this. Now there's several scenarios you could run into when you take the leg apart. There's a peg that is permanently attached to one side of the leg. Those tend to break. But even if it breaks, you can still fix the figure. I've run into all scenarios where the peg is gone completely and I don't have a peg at all. That makes it more difficult to socket the leg back in, but not impossible. Now, if you have a peg and it's busted off, but you can still get it on the other side, that'll help you line up the peg back into the leg. Or if best scenario is that the peg isn't broken and it's just wear from playing with the figure that makes the knees loose. So let's check this guy out and go ahead and open him up, take him all apart, and start the process of getting him fixed. Alright, so step number one to get this guy done is getting him apart. And I'm sure most of you know how to do this, but figure I'd show you anyway. So obviously every G.I. Joe has a screw back here. Upon getting this screw off, you can get pretty much everything apart. There's the screw, and I usually use a bowl like this, like one of these magnetic bowls, and I just throw everything in there so I don't lose anything. Let's pop them apart here. Some of these things are very tough to get apart if they haven't ever been opened. This guy's not too bad, but I can tell you one thing: if you can't get the figure open or split apart, you can stick them in the water, like in warm water, and that will kind of loosen this bond here, because as you can see, there's some pegs here. I'm sure you guys have all opened your Joes. We did this as kids, but those two pegs, they socket in, and then the top part kind of is held together by the screw. So sometimes it's just very difficult to pry this apart if it's been held tight for a long time. This one came right apart, so it's not a big deal. But anyway, the next step is, on your loose knee, not the other one, the one that's loose, which is this guy right here. This is my loose knee here. We're going to remove that screw right there. So let's do that. Taking that screw out of there, putting it in the metal bowl so I don't lose it. And taking the leg apart here. This is another thing you may or may not have issues with. As a matter of fact, let's pull his crotch off here so you don't break it. Those things are very susceptible to breakage. If you know anything about G.I. Joes, you know that as well. Many dickless figures out there. But anyway, here's the knee. Let me just see if I can get this leg open really quick here. And if I can't get it open with my hands, then I'll use some kind of pry tool or something to stick in there and open it. But I can kind of see a gap here, so got it. I think I can. Okay, so I got the thing off, but you got to be very careful because of the pin that I So here, this figure got one side off. Now let's see what this side looks like. Sometimes you'll have a broken pin, which doesn't matter. You can still fix it. Luckily, as you can see, this guy is intact. So this is going to be a really, really good success when it comes to the repair. When you have this peg and it didn't bust off that little side right there, these things come out amazing. I've done a few with the broken peg and it still works, but it does require more coats. This guy is going to only require one coat of varnish, and I'll show you where you put the varnish next. But after the one coat of varnish and you let it dry really well, we'll see what kind of a difference it makes. So I'll be back shortly. All right, guys, here we go. Back. I'll show you what to do. So first, you grab a paintbrush. This is really fucked up, but for this, it really doesn't matter. There is zero precision to what we're doing. It's really stiffened, and you know, I've used it for several figures, and I have washed it, but over time, it just fucks up. So I'll eventually get a new brush, but I don't need it right now, because for this, you could really apply it with anything. A brush is just easy. So what you do is, you take the leg that you're working on, which in our case is this one, and what you do is, you apply the varnish to both sides of the leg. So we're going to take a little bit, take a little dip in here, not too much, you could see. And then all I'll do is I'll get all the excess off, because you don't want it to gunk. If it seeps out of the joint, then it's going to be visible. So you don't want it to do that. And then you're going to just take your joint and you're just going to apply varnish here. And you do it on both sides. And like I said, because this figure has the peg, you're only going to need one coat. So I'm going to make it a pretty nice coat, a pretty thick coat. And if I overdo it, I can always just use sandpaper and sand some of this varnish off. Now I can see I kind of overdid it just a tad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean my brush just a little bit. Let me grab a piece of paper here so I can clean the brush. Wipe the brush here. And then I'm just going to go over it again with the dry brush to kind of remove any of that excess, but not too much. You see it's nice and shiny, and I got a nice gunky finish, and that's kind of what you want. This will make the joint really tight. Really, really tight. So that's exactly what we want. I'll be back. Now that what you do is, after you, before you do anything else, you just let this sit. Set a 45-minute timer. They say it's got a 30-minute dry time, but I always give it a little bit of extra time. You want it to dry as much as possible. And then we're going to put it back together after that, after 45 minutes, and then see how that joint is behaving. I could still tell that this is a little thick here, so I'm still going to use, my brush just broke, but it's okay. I don't need to, I'll grab another one for the next part, but I'm just kind of spreading this a little bit more even. And that looks like it's going to be really nice right there. Now, one thing I don't like, okay, is you see how there's varnish in the back part? You want to wipe that off before any drying begins to happen, so that right here in the back of the actual figure, you don't have any varnish, because that actually shows when the figure is turned around, and it doesn't look good, especially like on figures with lighter colors than this one. So we're going to let this sit for 45 minutes, and then we're going to be back to try it out. I have a feeling this one's going to look really good because that peg is intact. A lot of times you'll have it, like I said, with this little peg right here, busted off. And then what'll happen is it'll bust inside the hole. And there's several things you can do about that. You can use a toothpick to kind of recreate the pin. So if I run into another figure that I see this on, I'll make another short video showing you guys how to get around that. But I'll be back. 45 minutes. We'll put this guy back together and see what's up. See you soon. Okay, it's been a little over an hour because I had some things to do. So I left it a little longer. As you can see, it's nice and shiny. So step number one, before you put them back together, find something like, I have this little drill bit right here, which I just happen to have, and kind of just like go into the hole to make sure that there's no dried up varnish in the hole a little bit. Then, if your leg has the peg, the famous peg I've been talking about right here, the curve, see how there's a curve here, kind of slopes down. That's the front of the knee, so the foot goes this way. And see, I went right in. Then what you're going to do is the other side of the leg is the one that holds the ball joint for the leg. So hook the ball joint in here. Fucking thing, get out of my fucking way. O-ring's kind of in my way, but then again, it's not really. So anyway, there you go. So it kind of looks like that when the ball catches. And then you just put it back together. Like so. Not like so. Hold on. There we go. All right. So before, obviously screw it back in. On the G.I. Joes, the leg screws, they had a little point to them, like a pointed screw, versus the ones that go in their back did not. So that's how you can easily find the screw. Now, mind you, a lot of these, if you like use G.I. Joes, people have already fucked with them, so you may not have that. But anyway, there it goes. So let's see how it turned out, and if it needs another coat. See? His leg drops very slightly. And actually, by tomorrow, this will be even harder. But check it out. See? His knee drops just a little bit. So if I wanted to, I can give him another coat just to make him a little bit more solid. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that. Even though I'm pretty confident that tomorrow, this figure will probably not require that. But it doesn't really hurt anything. As long as you're able to put the pin through, you don't have to sand it, then it's going to work. So let's open it back up and give. Now, you're probably going to have to do this several times if the figure does not have a pin in it. So what I do is, if a figure does not have this plastic peg, I won't even put it back together until I give it a few coats of the varnish. Now, my brush is fucked, so I'm going to grab the varnish again, pop it open, and just kind of dip what's left of that shit brush. I have more brushes, I just don't know where the fuck they are right now. But anyway, not important for what we have to do. We're going to take it, and then one thing I'm going to do a little bit different is I didn't put any varnish on the peg part, and I don't do that normally unless I have to. But in this case, I think it'll help it. So I'm going to dip this makeshift brush into my varnish and just kind of coat, not coat, but just kind of put it around the pin a little bit here, and kind of into this area on the other part of the leg now. I don't normally do this, but I think for this it's going to help. It's kind of experimental. Didn't put a lot, as you can see, it's almost nothing. Now on the other part of the leg, the one we originally put the varnish on that part I am going to give it a nice little hefty coat on top of the other one. This will just, when this dries on top of the other coat, it is just going to be a little bit thicker, which is kind of what we want. And then the knee will drop even less, even though, you know, technically speaking, you could be happy with the way it is right now as to how, if we compare it to how it used to be. So then, like I said, you want to wipe varnish from the actual ridge here, because that is visible when you turn the knee. So you don't want any shininess or anything awkward to show. Another 45 minutes and we'll be back to see how this turns out after that second coat. Okay, back again, ready to put this guy back together yet one more time. Let's see if this is going to give us any improvement. So ball joint in here, like before, curve to the front. So best to place the foot on the peg first like this. So curve to the front right there. Yeah, this already feels nice and stiff. I haven't even closed it. It's going to work really well. So anyway, let's put this back together here. Set this in. screw. Almost done with this. All right. All right. So let's see how this works out. This shit is not moving at all, which is good. Let's see. Oh yeah. This is officially fixed, so these legs should stand up like no problem now. There you have it. He is good to go. So anyway, I'm just going to put him back together now and call it, because he's all done. Really quick, before I actually put him 100% back together, I actually wipe back here with a paper towel, which I already did. But that's something I wanted to include because since the varnish hasn't really cured, which it takes, hours to fully cure, but it's definitely good enough to put it back together. Tomorrow, these joints will be even stiffer. So this will be just like a figure that just came out of the package pretty much. It works really well. I'll show you guys one more time. If I take the legs and I just shake away, there is no bendage whatsoever. I mean, I think the original leg bends more than the varnish one now. Just physical weight, so definitely a huge improvement, and it's an easy way to fix your figures that are loose knees with very little effort. And you can do this, like I said, if the peg is broken, just apply more coats of varnish. Eventually you'll get the same result. If you overdo it, sand it down a little bit, and just get it to where you want it. So that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe. I'll be doing more of this stuff because it kind of like keeps my sanity a little bit because I'm not really a homebody much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, day, or whatever it is you're up to. Signing out.